Welcome back to Vlogging Garage. Now, today we are actually going to be taking a new direction. We're working on the suspension and the brakes. The engine I've already done the work for, except for that I need to reassemble it, but I'll get to that. Coming videos, I'll discuss that. You won't see me assemble it because I got to take my time to figure that part out, as well as additional help from that. But today we're going to be talking about the suspension for the 944. Specifically, the trailing arms, the brakes, coilovers will be the next discussion, but we need to get the hard stuff out of the way. So one of the first things is actually the trailing arms. Now I did get a set of trailing arms from the local company, the local shop that I did get a set of trailing arms from the local shop that I got this car from, Wolfsburg Automotive, and the arms are aluminum, which means they are from the later versions, the turbo versions, 85 and up turbo versions. So that means the rear suspension needs to be changed. It's not going to change the geometry. It's just going to change what components are used. With that, there's some additional pieces that I need to go get. I'll head all the way out to Georgia and pick up some of those pieces. And then I'll come back and discuss quite a bit of those changes. If there's anything that I learned, is there anything else that needs to be discussed or changed, I'll bring those back and we'll have a discussion on those. So we'll get all into that soon, and you get to ride along with me. Now, part of this video, there will be a technical error that I do not have mics for my new phone, and my audio is a little bit different. That is just going to be hopefully this episode's issue. So I will speak up and explain to the best that I can. If you have to turn up your volume, I'm sorry. I'm still just waiting on the mics. But what I will show you before I get into full details and we go on a trip, this is the engine block. It's been painted purple. I don't know if it's hard to see in this view, but I do have other posts through my social media. The block has been painted. It is ready to be reassembled. That's going to be the next step. So just want to update you guys on that and see where we're at. I will follow up after it has been assembled and go through what else needs to be done for the engine before it can be put into the car, especially the kit that I still won't have for no idea when. I've already spoken with the makers of the kit, Boost Brothers Garage, and they're actually on back order on some of the parts. So the kit is currently sold out, technically, but they do have some stuff I can get from them. And I'll work that out, and I'll explain that in coming up videos. So this is the situation that we have for the suspension. This is the rear side of the car. This is the right rear. The factory arms are steel, and the new arms from the turbo era, the turbo chassis, are aluminum. The issue with what I have found out is that the steel arms and the aluminum arms have different mounting points for, there's 3 bolts here for the splice plates. Those mountings, the spacings are a little bit different. So I can't use the splice plate for the torsion bar into this trailing arm. So I'm going to have to use splice plates, and I'm actually going to be picking up some calipers. So the turbo cars had 4-piston Brembo calipers, 4-piston on all 4 corners. That is great. And honestly, even more than enough based off the weight of this chassis in general and how it will be by the time I'm done building this car. So we are going to go to Georgia and go pick up some calipers and some splice plates, and hopefully come back with a whole new ready set of suspension. Now, I have already made a clip or video of this on my other social media talking about this, but these are the aluminum trailing arms. And this is how it will go in. Actually, this is the Yeah, this is the rear right side. So this is how it will go in. The splice plate connection for here is different. The bolts, the mounting holes for the bolts are different. The other difference is, the one thing that will be different about this setup versus what is currently on there is I'm going to remove the drum brake. Don't need the drum parking brake. Don't need the parking brake for this car. Not necessary. I will also be going over and explaining the hardware that I've changed, particularly with the mounting points for the torsion bar, which I also got to talk about, and replacing these bushings, which I already have. So replacing the hardware, replacing the bushings, replacing the trailing arms, replacing the rotors, replacing the calipers. We are getting a whole new suspension. The coilovers are going to be the only one thing that still will need to be designed for, but that's later discussions. So this is the aluminum trailing arm, and just a few parts that I need to get for this. So let's get ready and let's go for a drive. Now the place that I'm actually going to be going to, is actually called the 944 Barn. If you know about it, you know where it is, or have been there before, or just know about it and have seen some of the posts and photos. The person who owns the 944 Barn, it is a barn attached to his house, and he has a junkyard full of 924, 944 Porsches. From the base models to the turbos, so the person who owns the barn actually has the barn, and it's a junkyard full of 924s, 944s, base model to the turbos, and he's selling scrapyard parts from trim pieces on the windows, the wheels. We're talking about the vehicle wheels to the steering wheels, the seats, parts, you name it. And so I'm just going there to get a couple of things because I need them for the suspension, critical parts for the suspension in order for me to upgrade them. Well, I've gotten back and I've got all the parts that I needed. And so we're going to run through them. For starts, the front. The front actually needed to be upgraded with, in fact, all four corners upgraded with 4-piston calipers. Now, what I got was a set with the raised logo, raised Porsche. And those are pretty heavy, so I'm not going to hold on to those. But what I found out, what I was just going to get was the calipers themselves. But what I was told from Elliot at 944 Barn was the upright linkage, right? The upright itself, these mounting points are not the same from this naturally aspirated version to the turbo version. And that also affected this, so this knuckle that mounted the coil itself, those bolt holes were different. The surfaces for the bracket that hold this coil over to this knuckle was different. So it was just easier to just go ahead and get front hub knuckles with rotors, as we see here, even though I'm just going to replace these rotors, with the calipers. So full front replacement. This is all going to go away. This will actually still mount into the same tie rod. The control arm will be mounted the same. All I will need to do is just replace these bushings for the control arm and the tie rod. Easy enough, or should be easy. Now, the rear is a different story. The rear, since I actually already have the rear trailing arms for the turbo trailing arms, all I needed was the calipers themselves. Same scenario, got the raised edges, beautiful. If we have clearance issues with these raised edges, no big deal. We'll do some offset, some proper offset design for the wheels and maybe some spacers, but we shouldn't have any issues. But calipers for the rear, didn't have to get new hubs. The trailing arms are mounted with, will be mounted with the brake rotors. And the only other thing that I needed to get for the rear, as I mentioned, because I have the turbo trailing arms, I needed the spring plates. These are the spring plates that I need to replace with. The trailing arm, the way that these are mounted to, are a little bit different. I think they use the same bolts, or I can still use the same bolts. However, these are just, these are mounted differently. And that's going to be the issue. There's an additional slot here that to take into account. So the design is different, and I went ahead and got these. Now, the other thing that I was told about the rear is the torsion bar that actually goes through right here. It goes across. The torsion bar has inside of it, it has a, well, this is the actual subframe bar, but there's a torsion bar on the inside of that. Two of them, I believe, if I'm correct. Those two, if kept in there with this rear trailing arm suspension and putting a coilover setup, it's going to counteract and mess with the coilover itself, because that torsion bar is going to be acting against that coilover to keep it in place. There might be, and trying to put that back together. So the easiest thing to do is take that out, just keep the tube as a subframe mount. There's also, Bruce Brothers Garage has a square tube design as a replacement. And that, what I was told is, so when this suspension gets lowered, it curls inward. So inwards this direction into the body, versus that square tubular design. If you're going to go through Bruce Brothers Garage and get that tubular subframe design, that will actually keep this going vertical when it has motion back into the body frame. Instead of curving back towards the front, it keeps it aligned vertically. That's what I was informed of. So those are the upgrades that will be happening with the rear. In addition, now let me get to you. There's with having to take this entire rear subframe out, taking all of this out, I've actually got some upgrades that include upgrading the bushings on the spring plate here. So we're replacing this rubber bushing, as well as I've got the rubber bushing that connects from the tubular arm to the trailing arm, those bushings. And then I've also got another set of bushings, and I forget where they're mounted. Also with some hardware upgrades. I've done and ordered me a good, it got me some good old PowerFlex stuff, some good stuff. Fortunately, what they had on their website was only for the turbo stuff, which works out because I've got the turbo arm upgrade. So I'll be working with replacing the turbo bushings. I believe these are for, these are for the connection of the trailing arm to the torsion bar, the torsion arm, the subframe tube. And then I've got, like I said, I've got, yep. I need to figure out where I put those. And then the other was for the spring plate bushings to the torsion bar. In addition, for those upgrades, I went ahead and ordered some higher strength bolts. Now, to put this into perspective, the existing hardware on the suspension was designed for the car as it was meant to be, without, this sports car upgrade. The hardware used is a grade 8.8, ISO grade 0.8. And if you're an engineer, you understand what that means, an equivalency. But for those who do not, I'm going to put this very simple. Grade 5 SAE is the same as ISO grade 8.8. Grade 8 SAE is the same as ISO 10.9. And that's what we got here. So 10.9. Now some of these bolts are going to be for mounting the coilovers themselves. Other bolts are going to be for the hardware from the trailing arm to the torsion arm, or subframe bar itself. So, and then just to be a little bit fancy, I went and got some, because I went and got some yellow chromate, and actually that's what they use already, is some yellow chromate hardware. So we upgraded those. Yeah, I think I've got all of those pieces. There's more. Yep, got all of that what I checked. So that's all for newer suspension. So by the time I get some coilovers, it's going to get some new hardware as well. That's going to be able to handle all the forces that are going to go into the suspension. While I have all of those pieces ready to go, I have suspension parts ready to go, except for some stuff for the front, bushings, bearings, little things like that. I have all of the suspension pretty much ready to go. The only thing left to work on before I can put any of the suspension in, and this is going to be a little bit of a surprise, but this baby is getting a roll cage. She's getting a full cage. Mounted cage and everything. Welded. Not bolted, welded. So that's going to be the next step for this going forward. And by the time once I get the cage put in, I can then bring the car back, work on the suspension. At that point, I should have the engine fully put back together, which honestly, I should spend putting it together while the car is going to be away. So the next time, hopefully the next time you see me, this baby will have a cage in the car and will be a very good step moving forward. So with all of that, that's the work that needs to be done with the car. We're in very good shape. We got a lot of stuff to do. I have a lot of stuff to do. Let's be clear about that. The engine still needs to be put together, which frankly, when it kind of cools down, I'll be able to think clearly and put some of that stuff back together. And then, like I said, I've got the suspension I get to drop the suspension and put it back together. The only thing about what I've got, also, I do need to get some refurbished kits, replace some of the gaskets, the seals, any of the bolts, the hardware, and then all of that should be good, ready for brake line connections and brake fluid. But even that's going to be down the road. So very good step, a lot of much wow, such goodness, yes wow. I'm glad to have the car where it is, and we got work to do. So I thank you guys very much for sticking around this long and keeping up with my series so far, documenting me putting this car together. If you are new to this page, do leave a like and subscribe, follow. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have any suggestions, if you guys want to see anything different, if there's if there's another video or another thing that I need to talk about, or some information you want to provide me, do let me know in the comments. So again, I thank you guys very much for following me along with this project, and I've got plenty of work to do. I'll see you guys in the next video, and thank you for following Das Wagen Garage.